Hello everyone, Mr. Happy here, and welcome to Mondays with Mr. Happy, aka Mr. Happy Mondays, the weekly Q&A show where you ask me questions, and my beard is way too long. No, like literally, we call this expansion beard right here, although I've had it for like 2 weeks. So it was pre-expansion, now post-expansion beard. This is priority numero uno. It's gotta be, because this is like not a well-kept good beard to keep long like this. This is like that. Hey man, you know, I'm pulling orange juice out of the fridge and Doritos out of the fucking table on the side right here, and that's just not the kind of beard that I really want to have. So anyway, we got quite a few questions over on the forums, but it looks like for the first time in several weeks, we'll actually have time for questions on the Twitch chat. I want to say a few things before we get started though. One, I know it's going to be, what do you think of Warrior? What do you think of White Mage? What do you think of Red Mage? What do you think of Samurai? What's the stat priority for this? What's that? I'm almost 100% certain I expect a million questions like that. I'm going to say right now, I don't know the answer to all those questions. The only jobs I can talk about are Samurai, Monk, Miner, and I guess my White Mage is like 65, almost 66. So those are like the only things I, from personal reference, can speak about. There's a great post about healers from Bok Choy on Reddit. There's Xeno did a video about Warrior. There's resources popping up. And as I level them and I actually have thoughts on them, I'll be able to share those as well. But anyway, wanted to get that out of the way. So if I see a lot of those questions, I'll probably just skip them because I don't have good answers for them. Just letting you know now. Let's get to the questions. All right, question number one. Hey, Mr. Skippy. That's not my name. Seems like I rescued this week's Mondays on Sundays with Mr. Happy. Yeah, he reminded me to put the forum. I've been doing that a lot where I just forget to add the forum because I'm like trying to do all this expansion related stuff. I kind of remember not to have him have to remember me or remind me this week. After Stormblood launch, I have 3 questions, or rather a question roulette. Why, and why? I just want to say I'm a little afraid if any of these are actually spoiler related. But wow, that's okay. Let me see here. What is this one? Why is the Fate reward window still clickable and not unclickable like when you gather a fish? I didn't know that was a thing until you just said that. I feel like picking a different question now because that was a shit one. Why are people defending Stormblood's early access launch with sentences like, at least it isn't as bad as Heavensward launch? What are these questions? Heavensward launch was amazing. I don't know what to, why isn't the second boss of Stormblood's 3rd dungeon in Sastasha? Now, that's a good question, because that shit should be in the Hall of the Novice. But going back to that, wait a minute. First of all, you can't defend servers being, like, not good. The DDoS attack wasn't consistent over 5 days. So you can't be like, well, there was a DDoS attack, that was why. The Raubon thing was deliberate at certain times, and the instant servers messing up. I mean, you never want that problem. But to specifically say, isn't as bad as Heavensward's launch was... It wasn't the #1 launch of all time, but it was mostly playable. So somehow you managed to pick 3 questions, and they've all blown my mind in some way. So you are the true winner this week. On that note, greetings, Mr. Happy. Hope you are having a great Stormblood week. I am. As a commemoration for this occasion, I have a bonus of a t-shirt saying, I survived Raubon's wild ride. So, somebody actually did make an I beat Raubon shirt, and I did actually purchase it, and it will be here in the next day or 2. So, you might be the first person who I am actually getting said bonus as I'm reading this question right now. One question this time around in case you have an overload of questions. As a raider excited for the new EX fights, how would you rank both of the new ones in terms of difficulty? Would you consider them harder or easier than the other extreme fights we have encountered thus far? Fair question. These are definitely on the easier side. The main thing is, mechanically, they would be more fun if they were more punishing, at least for someone like me, I should say. However, they're very recoverable. If you have 6 people who know how to beat the fight, there's a good chance that you will clear the fight as long as those 6 people are performing, and as long as the 2 remaining people aren't the healers dying over and over again. Even if people mess up mechanics, it's never the end of the world on those fights unless they mess up so many on top of each other that it just murders everyone. Thunderclouds are a big one, or Thunderheads, I should say, are a big one on Susano, and people just forgetting to use Vril on Lakshmi. I'd say they're probably deliberately this difficulty, probably more so because they want people to get used to a lot of the job changes. I don't expect necessarily Primals going forward to be hyper difficult compared to these, except for the one in 4.1, which I won't say by name right now. That being said, I think that they were deliberately made more forgiving so people could get used to the new jobs, and the people who got used to them very quickly are clearing them, you know, just snap, snap, snap. Question number 3. Hey again, Haps. Thanks for answering my question last week concerning healers. But while I used the white mage change as an example, I didn't mean for you to take it as a white mage question. So this week, I'll just get right to it. When I play healers in this game, my goal is to actually do as little healing as possible so I can do as much damage as possible. Do you think this is a failure in game design, and do you personally like this or think it should change? I don't think that conceptually is necessarily a failure in game design. It just goes to show you that they're pandering more towards, you know, not trying to overdo it on how much healing is required and trying to make it so that there's room to consider the next situation. That being said, what is a failure in design is that they keep saying they don't expect it, but the mechanics in the game have only just started to kind of lean in a direction that shows that they might want to keep healers a little more busy. And I think that's the ultimate problem. You say you don't want them to DPS, but you don't then create situations in where healing constantly is necessary. So it's a bit of a back and forth, and I think that's really where the problem is. I'm for either one. I love DPSing as white mage. I love DPSing as the healers in general, but whenever I need to output a lot of healing, I get satisfaction out of that too, because I'm actively doing something. As long as I'm actively doing something, I'm fine with either or, and I'm just going to take it for the way it is now and, you know, see if it evolves. Maybe try some of the more hardcore endgame content as a healer to see if there is that shift. And I think, at least in the Super Savages, that shift will probably be there. I don't know how much time there will be to DPS there. Question number 4. Hey-ho, hey-ho, Mr. Happy-o, hey-ho, Mr. Happy-o. I mean, I had to do it. I have 2 quick questions for this week. 1, do you think that adding a new armor slot for cape scarves is possible? I think they actually answered this, like, word for word in a recent live letter, maybe like 2, maybe 3 live letters ago, and I think they said it was, but there was some other reason that they gave. I mean, it's possible to implement. It's an item slot, you know. Of course, it's possible, but I personally don't really care about glamour, and I don't think they'll add another piece of loot that actually has stats. So this would probably just be a glamour slot altogether. So I'm indifferent. It doesn't matter to me. But if it's something they do, then it's something they do. 2, is it possible for 14 to get moves and attacks that involve tossing enemies in the air? No. So that is something that you get in games like Blade and Soul. And technically, you could create a CC effect that's somewhat similar. But as soon as you're fighting something like Bahamut, you're not going to toss Bahamut in the air. You know what I mean? And then air combos. Now, dude, this isn't Blade and Soul, dude. That kind of thing just isn't. That's not what these kind of MMOs are designed for. You can pretty much make maybe one fight that uses like separate hotbars, like you know how like an active time event, or for something like you know how on some items have the usables, like the Magitech ones in the Praetorium, like something like that. But they're never gonna make it so there's air. Like that's not gonna be a normal thing. That would be something that be specifically for one fight, and it'd be a special mechanic for said fight. All right, we had to skip the last question because it was pretty much the embodiment of the type of questions I said I wouldn't be answering, so had to do that. Hola, Happy. First time here. Have a first time bonus of getting to name the next tombstones. I'm still waiting on tombstones of Yoshida, so that's the winner. Now that you've done both Susanoo and Lakshmi, would you say was the easier option? This is almost like a follow-up to the earlier question. Personally, I think Susanoo is easier. I don't think Lakshmi is difficult, but I personally feel like Susanoo is the easier one. That being said, when I see other people doing Susanoo and Lakshmi, those Thunderhead clouds, man, do people not know how to react when they see those Thunderhead clouds. So maybe not everyone agrees with me on that one, and especially because with Lakshmi, it's literally like, Vril, I'm invincible. Vril, can't kill me. Vril, whatever, you know? But I still think Lakshmi is harder. That's just my opinion. What do you think overall? 2 extreme primals around the same difficulty and rewarding similar gear. They reward completely different things, and which I think is the way it should be done. I don't think you should have 2 different primals at the same time, both dropping weapons. I think that's redundant. Number 7. Hey, Hap, sup, sucker. It says it's been a while. Here's a date with Curious Gorge's new crush. I haven't seen that story yet, so now I'm curious. 2 things. 1, the final trial tied to Stormblood story. Thank you for not using the name of the boss. And, well, if you had, I think at this point you would have known, because you've posted a few times. Too hard, or just a case of shiny unknown fight with minimally geared pugs? Shiny unknown fight with minimally geared pugs. There's nothing about that fight that's that original, other than, I guess, a couple of things that are interesting in the way they're combined together. It's one of those things where you look at it, you go, okay, there's nothing really crazy about this encounter, but when an extreme comes out for this, Oh, that's going to be good. 2, Tenacity. How does it play into melding priority? So from what I understand, I've heard reports from some people say it's about 1,000 Tenacity per 1%. I've got some free company mates who have done some testing on their own and have found it to be closer to 600 Tenacity per 1%. That's 1% increased damage dealt and 1% less damage taken. In other words, you need so much of it. It's kind of not a high melding priority as of right now. So I'll wait till actual stat weights come out, but I don't know. Those numbers for me, not looking great. Question number 8. Hey, Mr. Happy, I hope you're enjoying Stormblood. Thanks for answering my question last week. This one's another job question. What the hell happened to Scholar? I'm just going to, you know what? How about this? I'm not going to say my thoughts on Scholar. I'm going to tell you a few things that happened. One, Bane, harder scaling in terms of like the more mobs you have, you know, the harder it scales down to that 80% with 5 mobs are up. Cost on Eloquium went way up. MP regeneration on Aetherflow was brought down, though they did get access to Lucid Dreaming. And then just their overall power of their heals feels insufficient without combining both the Scholar themselves and the Fairy on a single target. On top of that, Chocobos heal for more than the pets. So Fairies haven't scaled very well either. So they still have some useful buffs. Chain Stratagem's still strong, but they don't feel as fun to play, seems to be the consensus of many other Scholars. However, I don't know. I can only tell you that's what's happened, and we'll see how it pans out. Number 9. Hello, sir, and thank you for everything you do and the content you provide. Thank you for watching it. I'm someone who has dabbled in 14 in the past, but has never done much relevant content at the time of its release or max level. But I'm focusing on Stormblood and would like to get into the raiding scene with some friends. Longtime WoW player, know the routine of new launches there, but haven't grasped it here yet. My question is, what is the most efficient routine for someone wanting to get into Savage content in order to gear up and keep up to date going forward? Dungeons, fates, hunts, etc. Thanks. So it's tough. Generally, the earlier you get in or the more willing you are to make your own group to then get the progress is the 2 easier steps. Because proving yourself as somebody who's never done the content before is really tough to a lot of people who are organizing raid groups. A lot of them are like, well, you know, you got to prove to me that you're good at raids. You know, you could be good at EX Primals and all that. Some people shoot for just really, really good performances in EX Primals and try to bring that over and be like, look, I go above and beyond. I know this is only an EX Primal. But, you know, I've been looking to get in progression for a while. And then it comes down to trying to reach within your lane. Like, if you're someone who's never raided before, you're not going to apply to a group that, you know, goes for world progression rating. You're going to apply to a group that probably won't clear it very fast because you're trying to get your foot in the door. But I honestly, if you could just find friends, it says you're looking to get into it with some friends, that creates an advantage. So I'd say that is your key, because if you can make a group yourself and then, you know, all that group kind of has no expectations of where the group goes, as you start to raid, you'll create expectations, and then the people who have different expectations will now have the experience to find raid groups that are more fitting for them. It's super, super weird and not as easy to get into, but that's pretty much the way that you're going to have to end up doing it. All right, question number 10. Hello, Mr. Happy, and greetings from Detroit. Been a while since I asked a question. We actually have, I don't know how long it's been. You got like 12 questions on the forums. Well, as you may have forgotten, I love Primal mount farming. Lakshmi down, Susano down. However, my question is not about primals. Ooh, this would be good then. During State of the Realm, you said it took 12 hours. Oh, it's a leveling question. Was this factoring in long DPS queue times? No. Basically, I looked through my link shells, I looked through my free companies, I asked other people that was watching me while I was streaming, and I said, hey, does anyone want to do dungeons? It wasn't necessarily always a tank, although we did have some different tanks that rolled through, but I basically was just asking around for parties, and eventually, you know, we either had a healer or a tank, and got through those queues fast. If I was solo queuing, there's no fucking chance in hell I would have done dungeons. I would have done PvP the whole way. Or I would have done it very slowly with, like, you know, veteran clan hunts and maybe fates if some groups are doing it in the zone. And, you know, maybe solo queuing while I'm doing those fates so I can get something done. Or try to join, like, the level 70s who are doing leveling and trial roulette and main scenario roulette. Main scenario roulette's pretty good. And then try to level. Like, I would have done it way, way slower, trust me. So, no, yeah. I didn't have one tank, but like sometimes we had a tank, sometimes we had a healer. It was just whoever was on and whoever was willing to run dungeons at the time. Ooh, this is a quick one. You didn't even say hello. Have you thought about playing Friday the 13th? Nah, I'm not into those games much, man. Like, they're fun for me to watch. They're not fun for me to play. Friday the 13th, we streamed some Dead by Daylight at one point. Those games are fun for me to watch, but I have no interest in actually streaming or playing those games. Those are games I like to watch only. That was a quick one. Number 12 looks like it'll be quick as well. Hey, Haps. Long-time watcher, but haven't posted in forever, so I have an EXP bonus of 300%. What do I look like? I'm on Zalera? Come on now. Anyhow, my question is a slight spoiler, and I don't know how to hide it, so I'm going to be typing on a phone. Okay, so you guys know how we do spoilers. Basically, I'm going to do a thumbs up. I'm going to hide the question off the stream, and then when I do the thumbs up again, it means the spoiler's done. So mute me until the spoiler's done, and then look for the thumbs up. Spoiler has officially started. It says it's a slight spoiler, so it may not be that bad. Okay. Oh, I don't think this one's that bad. Okay. Well, actually, yeah, it's a pretty important story. When the Aura tribes of the Azim Steppe come to help liberate Doma, they are flying on their Yol mounts. Yes, flying in Yangja. Are we to believe that they spend all the time fighting ether currents and doing quests as well? They live there! That's the reason. They live there. They've been attuned to that shit for hundreds and thousands of years. They're good. We are new. We need to get accustomed. They know that area. They're good to go. All right? And by the way, spoiler done. Question number 13. Hey, Mr. Haps, I was watching your Mondays with Mr. Happy video from last week and just saw the spoiler warning. Question about stealing pants. And it bothered me that the person even asked you that question because with any sort of imagination, you can tell the NPC saying this to your character, it was meant to just be a joke. Being a badass warrior light, get all the sexy times, essentially. This is not a, is this, no, there's a, what? Oh, okay. I was getting really confused as I was reading this because I was like, is there a question here at some point? So my question is, would you like FF to start glancing towards more adult values? Veils? Adult veils? All right. Keep it strictly G-rated. Final Fantasy's never been G-rated. This shit's always been about murder and making sex jokes. Final Fantasy's never been a G-rated series in my book. So, I mean, obviously not sex, drugs, rock and roll, but yeah, I've always had some more mature humor across the game. So, I mean, to me, it's just the same as it's always been. Okay, not as many job-related questions as I was expecting to skip. And some pretty weird ones at that. Sup, Happy? Hope you're enjoying launch week after a messy early access. So I know you aren't necessarily the best person to ask, but as someone who has played Samurai, any thoughts on the opener? I would highly recommend checking out Momo. Just type M-O-M-O Samurai Guide. Momo Samurai Guide. They go over a 1-cent opener and a 3-cent opener, and both of them are very efficient. So much so that we've seen some pretty ridiculous numbers coming out of them. I believe a 4,600 DPS on Susano was one that I saw. I saw like a 43k Madari. I think was it Momo that did the 43k Madari? I don't remember who did the 43k Madari. But yeah, it's pretty crazy. So I'm not even going to go into like the specifics you're mentioning. I'm just going to say go look at Momo's video and follow them because it seems like they're going to be doing some pretty in-depth stuff. Number 15. Hey, Happy. Hope you're well rested. I was actually well rested throughout most of that crazy launch stream because we had Tequila and Mel covering hours. That made things very, very easy for me. Not a first-time asker, so no bonus. But have this. Big thumbs up for the excellent work, my friend. Thank you. Here, thumbs up for you well. No spoiler with this one, just thumbs up. Anyway, my question has to do with tank aggro. I've heard a lot of tanks complaining that Red Mage, oh yeah, and Samurai do too much AoE damage and they can't keep hate. Have you heard of any threat problems concerning tanks or Samurais or Red Mages? OP right now. So I have heard of enmity issues with tanks. A lot of it comes down to trying to play tanks the way they were played in Heavensward, where you could probably get away with holding aggro the way you did before. But with the fact that tanks now deal damage based off strength again, and a lot of people switching to the full vitality accessories, except for those who are a little bit more hardcore at level 70, they're doing less damage and they're trying to tank in the exact same way they did before, and it simply doesn't work. You pretty much got to be going through AoE rotations pretty consistently. It doesn't help that Red Mage and Samurai deal insane amounts of burst damage. I don't know about Red Mage's AoE. I don't know how much burst damage Scatter is. I know Moulinet gets pretty ridiculous, especially if you're doing pack-to-pack kind of stuff. But yeah, no, I've heard plenty of people say it. You just gotta. I do see a lot of tanks. The problem being though, they're just trying to play like they did before and not do any enmity combos or very few enmity combos. And then you have Red Mage and Samurais not using diversion, and it's a recipe for disaster. So it's a little bit of everything, but that's to the best of my ability the way that I can address what would be causing said issues. Number 16. Hey Haps, Ninja Lou from Balmung here. Yeah. That server. Well, enjoy your 4,000 people queue that you're sitting in right now. Love the show, and I'm finally getting around to asking you a question. I think I remember you saying you were from Jersey, so my first time bonus, you get a slice of pie from any place in New York City. Hey, get me a slice of pie, get you a hot dog, and a cup of coffee. We'd be all right, all right? All right, we good. Actually, we have some pretty good New York style coffee here in San Diego. It's a little less greasy because it's California, but very good. So they have the Fly the Falcon mount campaign coming up, and I saw, as a huge Final Fantasy VI fan, I want it. I'll put the link below. I've seen it. Basically, the thing that you're talking about is their replacement for the veteran reward system. Basically, you need to sub for 90 days during the campaign. My sub renewed yesterday, by the time you read this, for 180 days. So I got charged before the campaign starts and won't get charged again until way after it ends. I'm assuming I'm going to get it. No, yeah, I think you'll get it. I think the entire idea is that you need to have a total of 90 days subbed within that time frame. Not, hey, you need to buy 90 days worth of sub only within that time frame. I think you'll be fine. I think that fits within its criteria. Number 18, AO, Mr. Happy. Not first time, but have a bonus of a jump potion for all your crafters and gatherers 70. That doesn't work. I mained Summoner since 2.3, and I was always under the impression that the stat priorities were crit into determination and then spell speed. Then a couple days ago, 2 Link Shells members says that it's always been spell speed over crit. Are you sure that they knew you were talking about Summoner? Because Summoner was never, especially way back when, ever spell speed over crit. There was an amount of spell speed you wanted to have in the 3.x series to get, I think it was like an extra Ruin 3 or something during Dreadworm. That was it, though. And it was not like it was spell speed was over crit. It was just like you wanted that amount of spell speed. You know what I mean? A Black Mage spell speed over crit, yeah, but not. Yeah, no, your raid leader is the smarter guy. That's the answer to he's the smarter guy. Yeah, no, good. I like your raid leader. Number 19, hey, Mr. Happy. Final Sim here, and welcome to Mondays with Mr. Happy, the weekly Q&A show. You know, you spelled weekly wrong, I think 3 weeks in a row. It bothers me every week, because it says week like W-E-A-K. I almost said C for some reason. Then I would have looked like an idiot. Anyways, Paladin now top-tier job in the meta. It's generally considered to be the top-tier tank in the meta at the very least. And that answers that question. So, okay. And another question, what are free chickens in PvP? Are you saying no? It's not free chickens. It's free chicken. Like, I'm here for the free chicken. You know, you ever showed up to a place because something's free? Slice is whenever people just show up to something, like just to show up to it, like they're not there to put in any effort. They're just there to reap the reward with no effort. He calls, I'm just here for the free chicken. That's what Sly says. There aren't actually. I'm just going to pretend that question didn't exist. I'm going to put it in the video, but I'm just going to pretend. Number 20. Hey, Haps. Long time no see. Have a returning adventurer bonus of either 30 days free at the gym or 30 cookies. That's a fucked up decision. Because first of all, there's no world where 30 cookies and 30 free days at the gym cost the same amount. All right? There's no way that like a gym membership, unless you're like going to a super shitty gym or these are really damn good cookies. At least 60 or 70 cookies I want for these 30 days free. So, I mean, either one's going to waste, so I'm fucked. You know what I mean? So, yeah, Xeno's video about the warrior, there you go. This is about, what are your opinions on tanks equipping full 270 accessories instead of top item level accessories? I'm embarrassed that it works. I'm more embarrassed that they don't need that extra health for the extreme primals. I would like to believe that the week of normal mode coming out, we're gonna see, you know, accessories that are level 60 or under will no longer be able to be worn by X amount or by X roll. It shouldn't be that way, and it's embarrassing that it is. And for the love of God, please don't let it be that way in 4 weeks. All right, question number 21. Hi, Mr. Happy. So this question might be kind of spoilery, so you might want to throw that thumb up just in case. Good warning. I think at this point we've already explained it before. Spoilers have begun. Turn it off the screen, and we'll be good. So we've known about Omega since 2.x, and there have been quite a few coincidences in regarding to Omega and Lolorito since then. Firstly, he blocked Telegi's play to try and gain access to it by stirring up trouble. Secondly, he was deploying Ilberd. And lastly, he threw his support behind the Scions after working against them, only after Omega found its way into Garlean-occupied Alamigo. I know it's pretty loose, but it seemed odd that a character who hasn't had any recent presence has so many connections to all these people and events surrounding Omega. Top of that, I think it'd just be an amazing story ended up Lolorito's such a Machiavellian. Yeah, Lolorito's doing some scummy shit. I don't want to believe that he has nothing to do with what's going to happen in Omega. I wouldn't be surprised if while we're in there, Lolorito has employed like his own people to kind of dive into the interdimensional rift and try to fish out Omega. I mean, that just is how it is. You know, I can't say anything because I don't know for certain. So just please look forward to it. Hi. Oh, by the way, spoilers done. All right, number 22. Hello, Mr. Happy. I did not post last week, so happy Stormblood. I love the expansion. The story is so epic. It's pretty good. 10 out of 10 would Stormblood again. I want to thank you for all the guides. I found them helpful. I'm glad you did. Here are my questions. I see the word Paladin. Okay, let me see what kind of question it is. In Paladin, with cover and intercept being important tools, how would you manage using them on a teammate in need? Oh, see, I feel like this is kind of a fair question. I mean, I feel like they're pretty standard. Cover, I mean, they're all about reducing damage. Cover has so many uses. You can mitigate entire effects and damage and keep melees and range and stuff. So I could talk about cover because I've at least played Paladin, you know, up to 60. So yeah, cover has a bunch of... I remember my favorite use for cover to this day is still the way it interacted in turn 13, where if you covered the person who had the Earthshakers, they wouldn't spawn puddles under them, and then of course the Paladin would be the one taking the damage for them. That was some OP shit right there. I hope we get to see some shit like that, because it's kind of imbalanced, but I love when cover works on shit like that. As for intercept, it's literally like, you know, one person's going to be taking a hit. It's not necessarily something you cover, so bam, throw it on them. And that's even assuming that the intercept is necessary, because I'm assuming that people are going to be mapping out whether they want to use intercepts or Sheltrons with that gauge. But I'm not going to get too much into the specifics of that. They both have their uses, and the more experienced Paladins will be the better ones to talk about it. And then question number 2, in Susano Extreme, how to identify the tank buster with no telegraph to know when it's coming? Are you talking about the one in the first phase? Because the tank buster in the first phase he just does it like once every like 25 seconds or something like that. There's not really a tell. It's just a time thing. Number 3, since my Paladin is 70, which job do you think I should get to 70 next? Dark Knight, Red Mage. Red Mage. Red Mage is going to be good fun. I'm going to just give you that one. All right, I had to skip the question prior to this again because once again, it's asking me a question about a bunch of things that I haven't played, so I can't speak intelligently on them. I could only reiterate exactly the same thing the community has said, and they already referenced what the community has been saying, so my answer was worthless. Let's see, number 24, with all the Cold Steel talk, here for you, Cold Steel. Is that a fucking website that sells katanas? Yes, it is. Okay, free advertising. Last week's Monday, we talked about Lala Moogle memes. I don't recall hearing the part about blood sacrifices increasing drop rates. Okay, the question instead. A roulette, I suppose. Inventory, meshes, races. Holy shit. This is a pretty crazy roulette. Lesser important questions. Well, if it's a roulette, I only get to pick one. Inventory, meshes, race. I'm going to go with the lesser important questions because now I'm curious. Okay, that one has a spoiler, so I'm glad that I picked it. And then I scrolled up to this one. With the improvements to the NPC ally AI, do you think, or when do you think we might see a 14 version of the trust system? Never. Outright never. So the closest thing you'll see is the, what's it called? The squadrons. And even then, the squadrons you're only going to be able to use in super low-level, irrelevant shit. And it's just going to be more so to have them, or to the challenge of getting them through the dungeon, and probably less so them being your AI partners to get you through dungeons, from the way that I would anticipate it at the very least. So never probably, because the reason why Final Fantasy XI did that is because it was a game with a massively declining community that they couldn't even find enough people to group together for EXP parties, and it gave players an easier way to solo, stay into the game, level without relying on other people, and not need to worry about a declining population, especially on the really low population servers. We don't have any of that yet, so it's gonna be. It's also two completely different games. Final Fantasy XI, super easy to do AI that just fucking punch shit and then do weapon skills every like 20 seconds. They don't do anything special. It's just mobs, boom, 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 and then sometimes the later shit they do a little more, and they ain't doing much. All right, number 25. I think this is the second to last question. Yo, Happy, how you doing? I'm doing all right. Doing all right? He's doing all right. So the question for this week is, now with the increased mount speed, Yoshi P said he was not going to get the Fenrir motorcycle. I thought this would be a good time to get it. Well, he doesn't, because the increased speed is only available in certain zones. So as soon as you take it into a current zone, you're fucked. It looks like shit, which was the main problem that they had before. So that's the reason. You don't have increased speed in every single zone. You only have it in the old zones. So that's why. All right, I think this last question might once again be job related, and I think it has to do with Scholar. And I don't have an answer because I haven't played Scholar, so I'm just gonna skip that last question. Sorry, I don't know enough about Scholar to tell you to answer the question, especially about specifically scaling at 70. Like I haven't touched it, so I can't answer the question. So I'm glad I said that at the beginning of the video because it made us able to skip that one. But anyway, on that note, I am going to go over to the Twitch questions and grab the ones from there. So Twitch, let's see if you have some good questions this week since it's been a while since I've actually gotten to answer any from you. All right, so the first question I have from the Twitch chat, Happy, do you think a decaying system for PvP would be good? I've answered this a lot before, but it's been a while. It needs to exist. It's not even would it be good, it needs to exist. That is like the only way. The only concern is a matter of people just doing win trading at the very end, like right before they decay. Hey guys, we got to get together and win trade so we don't decay, whatever, you know. And then that again still creates problems. So I'm sure there's ways around that, but for me the other problem is people AFKing in PvP because they're trying to level. As Sly says, they're there for the free chicken. So it's pretty shitty. And yeah, there's some systems. Decaying needs to exist. Some other way of getting people to act. If EXP just scaled with participation in PvP, then that would be nice. I don't know how exactly they do that, but that would be that's a pipe dream for me. All right, here's another really simple one. Happy, why do you think they removed the stun or silence from DPS actions into roll actions and then also made it so they don't have damage? Like, tell you the reason why they don't have damage is because there's a really funny thing that happens with stuns when they deal damage. I'm gonna look at Warrior, old Warrior, Rip. What is it called? Heavy. It was a brutal swing. Yeah, brutal swing. Rip brutal swing. So one big thing. Let's go back to Ifrit. You bring a Warrior tank to Ifrit normal, right? And one of the big things is you could actually stun his some of his attacks. So most people would try to stun the puddles that would come up from the bottom, little cracked ground underneath, the eruptions as they were called. And you know what would happen? Everyone would just use all their stuns on the boss, and then someone would go to stun the boss, and it was impossible because people are just using their stuns for the DPS component. You could say that it's on the player to determine, hey, I can or can't use this for DPS, but then you're making them choose between doing less DPS and this one stun that they need every so often, and everybody has to hold it. It's not just one person holding their stun. It's everybody in your group who has a stun that they could be using to perform DPS. Yeah, I meant Ifrit hard mode. No, Ifrit, I mean, could you stun Ifrit normal? You might have been able to stun Ifrit normal as well. But that's a big reason why. So not only do they take them away from the rolls because you don't always need a stun, but they also made it so they don't do damage because you don't want to take it just because it deals damage and then say, fuck the stun. So that's the primary reason why. All right, here's a really simple one that I actually didn't get asked. I got asked pretty indirectly, so I guess actually I did kind of answer it already. How would you level an alternate job to 70? PvP. PvP, that's the answer. If I was solo queuing and I had no fast queues, PvP. If I have, you know, a group that I can put together, then I could run dungeons with for a few hours, I would do dungeons. If I don't have either of those things for some reason, or I just don't like PvP, I wouldn't do Palace of the Dead 60 to 70. Fuck that. I would probably just take it super slow, like I said earlier. Same exact things I said earlier, pretty much. I did 12 hours just dungeon spamming, and I could have done it faster. But not everyone has that luxury. Here's one job question that I can actually answer. Happy, are you happy? Hey, with the way Monk plays at 70. So I'm mostly happy with it. The only thing that's infuriating is when I'm practicing my rotation on a dummy and Brotherhood. There's nothing, it does nothing for me. I go to Stone Sky C. Oh, let me test my DPS on Stone Sky C. I hit Brotherhood. Brotherhood doesn't give me the 5% damage. I don't get any additional stacks because I don't have anyone around me. So it's just like, ah! Oh. No one? I'm here alone? Alright, I just pretend that button doesn't exist until I join an actual party. That's the only thing that, like, doesn't feel great. But, I mean, you're hitting a fucking training dummy. So is it, you know, that's about it. That's about the only thing. You're forever alone when you use Brotherhood doing a training dummy. That's the worst part of pretty much anything. So, yeah, other than that, I felt like it plays pretty well. There are some other minor things I would probably adjust. Deep meditation, sometimes it borders. It's way too, like, this is complete shit, or, oh my god, I love this ability. Like, it hits too many, like, opposite feelings there, and I would like to see it kind of just brought somewhere towards the middle, where it's like, oh, I didn't get the few procs. Oh, I got some extra procs. You know, I'd give up more superpower, but I just don't want the other end of the deal where I get no fucking procs for 3 minutes straight and then I hate myself. All right, I just read a question and I read it completely wrong, and it makes me want to answer that question and then just completely say something different. I don't know how that happened, but it did. Should tank rewards for roulette be raised as queue times for DPS are absurdly long even in mid-tier worlds? The problem with that is it doesn't make the DPS queue more, like change it, because ultimately, what do you want? You want the DPS, you want the DPS to change the tanks and queue. That's really the only way you're going to do it. Maybe if you make the rewards so good for level 70 tanks, maybe they'll do it. But unlikely, especially when you're going into leveling roulette and you get Sastasha normal twice in one day because you tried to do it before the reset and right after the reset. That happened to me today. However, when I saw that, when I first read it, I totally misread it. And I thought it said, do you think that DPS should have their rewards increased from roulettes for sitting in longer queue times? And I saw that and I thought about it and I went, you know what? I wonder if they could do that where if you've been in queue for X amount of time, for every like breakpoint you hit, it increases the reward for when you do finally get through, like every 5 minutes or every 10 minutes or anything like that. And then I thought about that and I was like, okay, don't get me wrong, I still don't want longer queues, but if there was some system making it up to me for sitting in this godforsaken queue that, you know, at least when I get to that end of that level 50 queue and I get it done and I reap this enormous reward for sitting there for a fucking hour practically, that would at least feel better, but it still doesn't feel good sitting in a queue for God knows how long. I would take that as something that could potentially happen one day, and I'm glad I misread your question to think about it. But I'd still rather have faster queue times. All right, everyone. Actually, I was looking through some of the questions. I haven't seen one for a while that I liked, so I'm going to wrap up Mondays with Mr. Happy at this point. Thank you for watching this week, ladies and gentlemen. I already made the thread for next week, so at this point, it's just a matter on if I remember to put it in the description before somebody has to remind me this week. But it's already made, and it's waiting. So Dream Network forums, as you know, every week. If you also want to ask questions live, don't forget that we record these Sundays, approximately 12:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time every Sunday, to then post them on Monday. But on that note, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining me for Mondays with Mr. Happy this week. I'm going to hang out with my Twitch chat a little bit more, but those of you over on YouTube, thank you for watching, and until next time, take care.